May 1969. Three astronauts are 239,000 miles from Earth, and they're about to hear something that will freak them out completely. Their names are Thomas Stafford, John Young, and Eugene Cernan. Their mission, Apollo 10, the full dress rehearsal for the moon landing. Fly the entire mission profile, except the landing itself. Undock the lunar module. Drop to within 9 miles of the surface. Prove every single system works, so Apollo 11 can actually touch down 2 months later with the whole world watching. Two of them, Stafford and Cernan, are flying the lunar module, nicknamed Snoopy. Young stays behind alone in the command module, Charlie Brown, orbiting overhead. This is 1969. The Cold War is still red hot. The space race is still very much alive, and every single second of this mission is being tracked, timed, and second-guessed back on Earth. There is zero room for error. Zero room for the unexpected. Nobody prepared any of them for this. As the spacecraft swings around to the far side of the moon, something happens that happens on every single lunar mission. Total radio blackout. The moon itself, 2,000 miles of solid rock, sits directly between the crew and every single antenna on Earth. For close to an hour, there's no voice contact, no data, no telemetry. Nothing gets in and nothing gets out. For that hour, these three men are more isolated than any human beings in history, farther from another living soul than anyone had ever been. Nobody on Earth can see them. Nobody can hear them. If something goes wrong up there, absolutely nobody can help them. And that's exactly when they hear it. A whistling sound, rising and falling, drifting in and out through the static of their headsets. Not a voice, not a warning tone. Something in between, something none of them trained for, something not on any checklist. Cernan keys his mic first. You hear that? That whistling sound. Stafford confirms it. Then Cernan tries to describe it and gives up, just imitating the noise instead. A long, warbling hood that trails off into silence. They call it, on the record, outer space-type music. Not because it's beautiful, because it doesn't belong. Picture the scene. No window big enough to see Earth. No radio channel to mission control. Just three men sealed inside two tiny spacecraft, hearing a sound that logically shouldn't exist, bleeding in from somewhere behind the crackle of their own transmission. Cernan says it out loud. That's just like something from outer space. Really? Who's going to believe it? Young answers, nobody. Shall we tell them about it? Cernan hesitates. I don't know. We ought to think about it some. 3 trained test pilots, handpicked by NASA out of thousands of applicants for nerves of absolute steel, are seriously debating whether to keep this quiet. These are men who've flown experimental jets, survived combat missions, and trained for years to stay calm during actual emergencies. And an unexplained whistling noise, heard alone in the dark, is enough to make them pause and think twice before ever mentioning it to anyone back home. Here's the part that makes this stranger than any internet rumor. This isn't a leaked file, and it isn't a story that surfaced out of nowhere. Every word of it sits in NASA's own official mission transcript, recorded live as it happened, 239,000 miles from home. It was technically public for years, and almost nobody noticed until a documentary crew pulled the original audio decades later, and the clip finally spread across the internet. And the story doesn't end with Apollo 10. 2 months later, Apollo 11 is getting ready for the actual landing. Someone at Mission Control remembers exactly what Stafford, Young, and Cernan reported, and quietly warns Michael Collins, the astronaut who will orbit alone while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walk on the surface below. Sure enough, when Collins swings around to the far side, he hears it too. That same eerie, warbling tone, bleeding straight into his headset with nobody around to ask about it. He later writes that if he hadn't been warned in advance, it genuinely would have terrified him. 3 separate astronauts, 2 different missions, months apart, the exact same unexplained sound, on the exact same stretch of empty lunar sky. So what was actually causing it? Here's the reveal, and it's not what conspiracy channels want you to believe. It's not aliens. It's not the moon doing something science can't explain. It's basic radio physics, hiding inside a genuinely spine-chilling moment. When a lunar module and the command module fly close together, both spacecraft run their own VHF radios at the same time on frequencies close enough to bump into each other. Two signals that near in frequency start to beat against one another, creating a rising and falling warble engineers call a heterodyne. It's the same basic effect you get when two microphones sit too close together at a concert, or two old walkie-talkies overlap on a shared channel. Except this is happening in a vacuum, 250,000 miles from the nearest sound engineer, with absolutely no one available to explain it in the moment it's happening. NASA engineers later confirmed the explanation by matching the recordings to the exact radio configuration of the two docked spacecraft. Decades afterward, Eugene Cernan himself put the whole thing to rest, brushing off every alien theory in 3 blunt words. Forget the UFOs. It was interference. Two machines talking over each other in the silence of deep space. So the mystery is technically solved. Case closed, right? Not quite, because knowing the cause doesn't erase what those 3 men actually felt in that moment. And that's the part worth sitting with. The sound itself wasn't paranormal. The situation absolutely was. 3 men, cut off from every other human being alive, hearing a noise they'd never trained for, with nobody on the entire planet able to explain it to them in real time. That fear in their voices on the tape, that's not a reenactment. That's not Hollywood sound design. That's a genuine, live recording of 3 human beings alone behind the moon 60 years ago, sounding honestly unsettled. And you can listen to the actual audio yourself today, exactly as it happened. Sometimes the universe doesn't need aliens to be terrifying. Sometimes all it takes is total silence, unimaginable distance, and a sound that 3 of the best trained astronauts alive couldn't immediately explain, echoing through history on a tape NASA never even tried to hide. No cover-up, no conspiracy, just a real recording sitting in a public archive this entire time, waiting for someone to actually press play. If a story like this deserves to be remembered, follow for more true accounts pulled straight from NASA's own mission archives. Because the real history of space exploration is stranger and far better documented than anything anyone could make up. And if you've been alone behind the moon hearing that exact sound, cut off from every other human being alive, tell me honestly in the comments below, would you have said a single word about it to anyone back on Earth, or kept it to yourself like they almost did?